Roger Federer was 30, in fact just a month short of 31, when he made his annual pilgrimage to the grass courts of the All England Club at Wimbledon in 2012. The great Federer appeared to some more cynical observers to be approaching his dotage as a player. Then for 2 weeks in London, SW19, the Swiss Maestro turned back the clock. This is perfection, the most inspired moments in sport.
Speed, set free, Federer.
For Roger Federer, Grand Slam singles titles came relatively easily between 2003 and 2011, or at least that's how it looked. During that time, nobody played the game of tennis with such beauty and artistry, and nobody won so often either. In each of the 8 years from his first Grand Slam title in 2003, he'd won at least one of the big 4 tournaments. 3 separate times, he'd won 3 in a calendar year. But by 2012, life had changed for the man from Basel. He and his wife Mirka had 2-year-old twin girls, Mila and Charlene, to tend. And inevitably, observers wondered whether as a father, Federer's tennis was as great. Of course, he was still good, but perhaps he was a step slower. Perhaps the fire had dimmed just a little. In 2011, Nadal, the clay court master, and Djokovic, the hard court champion, shared the majors. For Federer, more than 2 years had passed without him adding to his 16 slams. At the US Open at the end of 2011, he held match points against Djokovic in a semi-final, but he faltered and lost. And he would expire in the semi-finals at the Australian and the French in the first 2 slams of 2012. Then they came to Wimbledon, a venue that Federer had always loved, where he'd won the junior title and then 6 men's championships. The low-bouncing grass court suited his game, for he'd never been a backcourt slugger. At Wimbledon, he could follow his first serve to the net and hit his slice backhands to make them scuttle through low to an opponent. His creativity came to the fore. He had won in London 5 times in a row from 2003, matching the immortal Bjorn Borg's feat. And after Nadal turned the scales on him in 2008, Federer won again in 2009. He'd overtaken Pete Sampras's record of 14 Grand Slam singles titles, the most by a male, and extended the landmark to 16. When we return on Perfection, Federer's quest for 7 Wimbledons. At Wimbledon in 2012, Roger Federer was on song from the start. But then Frenchman Julien Benneteau pushed him to 5 sets in the 3rd round.
Well, I felt great, obviously. It's always one of the best feelings coming back from 2 sets to love in a Grand Slam, I guess, and particularly here in Wimbledon.
Seeded number 3, he surged into a seemingly inevitable confrontation with Djokovic, the defending champion, in the semi-finals. Then he defeated the Serbian in 4 sets, 6-3, 3-6, 6-4, 6-3, holding his nerve.
I'm happy with my momentum, like you mentioned. I feel like I'm playing great. I'm injury-free. I'm mentally ready to do sacrifices and work hard and make it happen for me. But then other guys are playing well as well. Last year, Novak had such a great year with so much confidence. It was just really hard to stop him. Now Murray's into the conversation as well after winning the Olympics.
Federer's form was outstanding, but he would need to take down Andy Murray, the Scot, in the final. Murray was into his 4th Grand Slam final, having lost all 3 before that, and he would have the support of a partisan British crowd. He had the chance to be the first male British player since Fred Perry in 1936 to win Wimbledon. In the final, it was tight. and Murray won the first set. The crowd roared its approval, while on television, 16.9 million Britons were glued to their screens, a record. Federer deployed his big first serve to good effect and found himself in the ascendancy. Eventually, at 5-4 in the fourth, Murray whipped a cross-court forehand just wide, and Federer had won. He had tied Pete Sampras's record of 7 Wimbledon men's singles titles. He was also back to #1 in the world at 30, and he was happy to remain as a force in the game.
Mentally, I was always ready to do the work and willing to travel and give it a shot, and at the end it all paid off, so I'm extremely happy. So right now I know, obviously, now people think I can win every Grand Slam that comes up, and then if I don't win US Open, I will never win one again. So that, you know, it's always the same story, but I'm just happy I was able to get Wimbledon, and it just showed what I kind of knew, is that if I do play well, I can win Grand Slams.
5 years later, he would win again, cementing his place as a god in the game. The sport of snowboarding is about pushing new boundaries, and Torah Bright, the Australian woman who won the halfpipe gold medal at the Vancouver Winter Olympic Games in 2010, is a prime example. Torah Bright almost missed the Vancouver Olympics altogether. Like almost all the alpine sports, snowboarding is dangerous, and Bright has suffered debilitating injuries in the lead up to Vancouver. In December 2009, she had endured shoulder surgery. Then at the end of January, just weeks out from the Games, she fell and knocked herself out, breaking her jaw and some teeth. Bright, then 23, from Cooma in the Australian Alps, needed her jaw realigned and had numerous brain scans. She suffered severe migraine headaches, and doctors even advised her to skip watching television, lest she overstimulate her brain. Members of her family advised her to forget Vancouver. But Bright would not be so easily defeated. She had a nice trick in her kit bag, and she was determined to use it. No other woman in the halfpipe had attempted what was known in the parlance as the switch backside 720, where the rider takes off backwards and completes 2 blind spins, also landing blind. It is a high-scoring maneuver, plainly difficult, and eschewed by many snowboarders, even the men. After the Turin Olympics, where Bright was 5th at age 19, she and her coach and brother Ben Bright began working on the move, first unveiled at the X Games in 2007. At Vancouver in 2010, it would prove to be the game changer. In the final at Cypress Mountain, Bright fell during her first run, putting her under pressure. She knew that she would need a big second run. It was time for the big move.
I knew that if I landed that run, it could be enough. And at that point, I was just relieved that I landed the run. I was a bit sore from my first run where I fell. But yeah, at that point, I knew that that run could have me a gold medal.
Bright completed the move, threw in another blind move on the other lip of the pipe immediately afterwards, and made a clean run. Now she would wait, as competitor after competitor failed to topple her score of 45 out of 50 points. Gold belonged to the Australian, who had carried her country's flag at the opening ceremony. She had spotted her parents, Peter and Marion, who were in the crowd, to her complete surprise. She told them not to bother making the long trip from Australia, to wait until her wedding in Salt Lake City later in the year, but they came anyway. And the night before, the Brights had been forced to hide in a wardrobe when their daughter arrived unprompted at the house they were staying at near Vancouver, ensuring she did not spoil the surprise. Bright credited her brother and coach Ben for taking her to new challenges. "He's always pushing me. I would never have believed I could do a switch backside 7, she said. Torah Bright smiled, as is her wont, the trademark smile.
I'm just so happy, and I was so proud to carry the Australian flag in the opening ceremony, and and then just coming here to this event and doing what I needed to do to be where I am now it just feels amazing. I'm so happy, and I think that my whole family is here is. It's a cherry on top of the cake. It just makes things that much more exciting.
Next on Perfection, Britain's first ever winner of the Tour de France. Britain had never produced a winner of the Tour de France. Then along came Bradley Wiggins in 2012. For reasons known only to themselves, the British had a long history of underperforming at the Tour de France, the great 3-week road classic and one of world sport's most famous single events. Until 2012, no Briton had won the general classification, nor come especially close. Tom Simpson was 6th in 1962 and wore the maillot jaune, or yellow jersey, in the Pyrenees, the first to do so, while Robert Miller, a Scot, finished 4th in general classification in 1984. Wiggins, a wicked time trialer and a good climber, went into the 2012 version of the world's most famous tour with wins in the Paris-Nice, the Tour of Romandie, and Critérium du Dauphiné. He was already a world and Olympic champion, dating back to the 2004 Olympic Games, where he won the first of 5 gold medals. Born in Belgium, but raised just outside London, Wiggins had pictures of Miguel Indurain, the 5-time Tour de France winner, on his walls as a boy. He needed no instruction in what it all meant.
It's the biggest race in cycling, so it's the height. There's nothing bigger than the Tour de France, the history and everything involved with it. So I think it would mean you're the best rider in the world for that 3 weeks. Maybe not for the whole season, but for that 3 weeks, you've won the Tour de France and you go down on a very special list of other winners. And that's the height of cycling.
These earlier races were merely the hors d'oeuvres, of course, because Le Tour would run over 2,173 miles, or 3,500 kilometers, through the Pyrenees and up the Alps, with men like the defending winner Cadel Evans of Australia to conquer.
I still think Cadel is the man to beat. He's the winner last year. He's a good time trial, he's a good climber. He can win sprints on small mountains. So he, without doubt, is still the man to beat for this year's tour. And he wants it, he fights all the time, he never gives up. So for me, he's the main man.
Switzerland's Fabian Cancellara won the prologue, but Wiggins was second in the opening stage. He won an early time trial stage, capitalizing on his strength, riding alone. At the first mountain stage, Tomblaine to La Planche de Bellefille, he grabbed the maillot jaune. He never returned that particular item of clothing. Wiggins was popular, even with the French press, who dubbed him Le Gentleman, and joked about his having the most famous rouflaquettes, or sideburns, since Elvis Presley. He came across as everyman, having slumped into depression and heavy drinking after his Olympic triumph in 2004. But he was on a high now, and he held his ground through the mountains, then onto the second last stage. A time trial from Bonneval to Chartres, he won again, sealing his triumph in the GC, more than a minute faster than Chris Froome, his Sky teammate, who had also emerged as his strongest rival. As is the quaint tradition of Le Tour de France, the GC leader is not attacked in the final stage to Paris. More than 3 minutes ahead, Wiggins rolled into the Champs-Élysées and watched his Sky teammate Mark Cavendish win the final stage. He merely needed to stay on his bike. He finished 3 minutes 21 seconds ahead of the second place Chris Froome. Britain, the duffer of the Tour de France for so long, had gone 1-2. Evans finished 7th, having lost time in the mountains, and Wiggins had lived a dream.
Since I was 12, I always thought about winning the tour, but never maybe thought that it would be a reality, you know? So it's, but, you know, you think about it because that's what gives you the motivation and the drive to train and do everything to win that. But then you have to come back to reality and think about the process and everything you have to go through towards achieving that.
In Britain, Wiggins' triumph was acclaimed.
I guess it doesn't make me look so stupid when I'm wearing lycra out on the street, you know. Got a bit of backing from somebody doing it professionally, but I don't know, I've been cycling for a couple of years, and I'm just glad that we can finally bring it home after 109 years.
Well, it's not just today, it's the last 2 years. We've got the world champion, the Tour de France winner, hopefully the Olympic champion in another week, top of the world.
He would retire after the 2016 Rio Olympics with 8 road and track Olympic medals, including 5 gold.
A debate raged about the status of Wiggins' breakthrough win and whether it was the best ever sporting performance by a British athlete. Sir Chris Hoy, himself a 6-time Olympic champion, labeled it as good as anything any British athlete has ever done. Sky had only pieced together its team 3 years earlier, promising a Grand Tour winner. And here was its day of vindication.
Well, obviously happy, you know. I mean, it's been a fantastic 3 weeks with the team, culminating the win today with Mark being led out by the yellow jersey of Bradley. So, yeah, I mean, a dream come true, really. Pretty special.
In December 2013, Bradley Wiggins became Sir Bradley Wiggins. At Buckingham Palace, after meeting the Queen, he said that he felt inferior as a mere bike rider. Of course, he didn't need to. Golf majors are meant to be hard to win, but South Korea's champion golfer, Inbee Park, took 3 in a row in 2013. South Korea's Inbee Park is a quiet assassin of the golf course. Most of the damage she does is with the putter rather than the driver. Born in Seoul and then sent to college in America, her primary skill is to get the golf ball in the hole. She does not hit the ball so far as her strongest rivals on the LPGA Tour, the likes of Stacey Lewis and Lexi Thompson, and her swing does not have the same ferocity or beauty. But give her an 8-foot putt to win a tournament, and she will probably make it. Inspired as a girl by Seri Pak, the first great Korean player, she joined the tour as a teen and won the US Open, her first major at just 19. Then she went into a lull. Her 2013, though, began with a burst of victories, including the Kraft Nabisco Championship, the season's first major at Mission Hills in California, where she went into the final round 3 shots clear and ultimately won by 4. Park took the traditional leap into Poppy's Pond, the watercourse beside the 18th green, and found it a little chilly. Her world rank soared to number 2, with the top slot in sight. "That's the place that I've always wanted to go, and I only have 1 more spot to go," she said. Second-placed So-yeon Yu, another player from the factory line of great South Koreans, complained that when they practiced together, Park always won the cash with her brilliant putting. "She always takes my money, so she always buys me dinner, lunch, whatever," said Yu. That was in April. In June, she won twice more on the LPGA Tour, including the LPGA Championship, the season's second major in a playoff at Locust Hill Country Club in New York. Then at the end of June, she won the United States Women's Open at Sebenak to make it 3 straight majors. As much as it was an amazing feat, it was not even close. Park won by 4 shots, joining Pat Bradley in 1986 and Babe Zacharias in 1950, among women to have won the season's first 3 majors. Zacharias in particular is an icon of the women's game, perhaps the best ever, and Park said having her name next to the legends meant so much. The Grand Slam became a talking point, a feat never achieved by a woman and only by one man, the late Bobby Jones. Park said her aim was for a career Grand Slam, rather than the literal meaning of the Grand Slam, as in all the majors in one calendar year. But the fact was, she had a chance, as the tour moved to the Women's British Open at the Old Course at St Andrews in Scotland in July. It was slightly confused by the fact that in 2013, the Women's Tour added a fifth major, the Evian Championship in France, to the schedule. But St Andrews was where Park's run ended. Stacey Lewis, the American, won the tournament, and the Korean felt the pressure, closing with a 78 to tie for 42nd. "I'm just glad the tournament is over, because I've gone through 4 rounds under pressure," Park said. Lewis broke a streak of 10 consecutive major wins by Asians. As for Park, she went back to normality and resumed winning. The very next season, she won the LPGA Championship again.
It feels a big honor to actually put my name on that trophy for twice, and obviously to defend my title. Yeah, just very happy, to be part of the history.
Inbee Park won 6 times in 2013, including 3 majors, and she is still draining putts. When we come back on Perfection, a baseball great chooses his moments superbly.
In recent times, the concept of loyalty has taken a battering in modern professional sport.
I thought last season when I was sacked as a champion, I thought was a giant negative thing. Now I realize that was peanuts compared with what happened to Claudio.
You can't build anything successful in business or in sport if you don't have trust. It's a bit like people going behind people's backs with what they were saying and not putting their names to it. There was no need to do it.
But in New York, there was one unbreakable bond. Derek Jeter played 20 years for the New York Yankees, patrolling from shortstop, taking catches, and hitting homers. He played in 5 World Series triumphs and was the MVP when the Yankees won in 2000.
He had 3,465 hits, the most of any Yankee, overtaking Lou Gehrig's record.
In New York, he was affectionately known as the Captain. Derek Jeter was a fixture at Yankee Stadium, like a warm blanket. The 2001 World Series between the Yankees and Arizona Diamondbacks was played later than usual because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11. By the time the series got to a 4th game, it was already November. Derek Jeter stepped to the plate with the scores tied at the bottom of the 10th inning and drove a long ball to right field and over the wall to win it. From that moment on, he would be known as Mr. November. This was the greatness of Jeter, who was not necessarily the most talented player. It was his timing, his presence, his sense of the occasion, his ability to get it done. His postseason numbers were almost always higher, and he hit a .321 average in World Series. In 2014, he announced that he would retire at season's end, and as it happened, his last game at Yankee Stadium was against Baltimore. There were 48,000 people in attendance as he came to the plate for the final time at his home stadium. Scores tied at 5-all in the 9th. 40-year-old Derek Jeter smote the baseball to right field for a single, brought his runner home, and won the game. The scriptwriters had it spot on.
This is all I've ever wanted to do, and not too many people get an opportunity to do it. And it was above and beyond anything that I've ever dreamt of. I've lived a dream. I mean, this is, since I was 4 or 5 years old, and part of that dream is over now.
His last ever game was at Boston's Fenway Park against the Red Sox on September 28. And even the rival fans rose to him as he clunked a base hit to left field for an RBI.
And I don't know how many people could really unite a crowd like he did today. Such big rivals, so much history between the teams, but I think it shows you the respect he has, even against your toughest rival.
You know, you want to be known as someone that had respect for the game, respect for your teammates, respect for the fans, respect for the media. Played the game hard. But for me, I'm happy being known as a Yankee. That's the only thing I've ever wanted to be was a shortstop of the New York Yankees, and I had an opportunity to do that for parts of 20 years. So being remembered as a Yankee is good enough for me.
It was the end of the road, and at Boston, a fan held up a sign. It read simply, respect.